Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to use the product to sum and the sum to product formula to solve equations. In this example, you need to solve the equation with the range of values of x like this. And remember that whenever you are asked to solve an equation, you need to pay attention to the range of values of x given. And also, let's look at the expression on the left. When using the sum to product formula, you know the result is 2 times sine and cosine. And since it's not a proof or show that question, you do not need to literally write of the angle 5x plus 3x over 2 or 5x minus 3x over 2. You can just write the results. But if you like, you can still write it in detail. So to do this, the first step, you need to use the sum to product formula. We have 2 times sine of 5 plus 3 over 2, that is 4x. And cosine of 5 minus 3 and then over 2, that is 1x, equals sine 4x. Now you can see that there is a factor of sine 4x appeared on both sides. So remember not to, okay, not to cancel out terms involving unknowns. Okay, you can cancel out constant like 2, 4, and 6 and so on, but never cancel the factor with unknowns. Okay, so instead we move them on one side, creating 0, and pick out common factor. So we have sine 4x and then bracket 2 times cosine x minus 1 equal 0. Now, we can have the next step, sine 4x equals 0 or cosine x equals 1/2. And for cosine x equal 1/2 is easy because it's a special angle, and so that we know the x is pi over 3 here. But for this one, sine of 4x equals 0, make sure you know that when you are solving x in this range from 0 to pi, you need to solve for 4x from 0 to 4 pi, okay, by just multiplying 4 on all sides, okay, excluding 4 pi, of course. And so whenever you are finding the solution here, you need to find up to 4 pi. Now, when do we have a 0 for sine theta? Okay, the basic angles are theta and pi. So here, the angle here can be 0, pi, and adding 2 pi to these two. So we have 2 pi and 3 pi. And we can add 2 pi to these two to create another set of solutions. But then when I add 2 pi to this one, it's already 4 pi, which is excluded the range here given. And so in the end, we have an overall solution. X is equal to 0, pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, or pi over 3. Okay? It's not quite necessary for you to include this pi over 3 in somewhere here so that x is arranging in ascending order. Okay, it's not necessary for you to do so. Okay, so this is example 1. It's simple. Example 2. Sometimes you need some previous part to start with. Okay, and for part A, these the sum of these 4 terms is a little bit familiar. Do you still remember when we do the proof for identities, we have met this kind of expression? And so since we have done that, you should be very clear that we have to divide into two smaller angles and two greater angles, and then we do the mix and match. Last time we do the theta with 7 theta or 3 theta with 7 theta. Okay, now before we consider which is matching with which, let's see what do we have here on the right. Okay, you can just estimate the result here. If we match this theta with 7 theta, we will have the angle 8/2, that is 4 theta, and 6/2, that is 3 theta. And for here, we have 4 theta and 2 theta. Okay, and the 4 theta, 2 theta appear here. Okay, despite the fact that we don't have 3 theta on the right, but then it appears here. What about if we matches these two? We have 5 theta and 2 theta. Here we have 3 theta and 2 theta. So if we match 3 theta with 7 theta, we create 5 theta and 3 theta. Okay, so there are two terms that we do not know what to do next. So it's better for you to consider this because it's just created one unknown angle 3 theta. Okay, so we try to match these two. Okay, so part A, left hand side. The sum of two cosine is 2 times 2 cosine. Greater angle comes first. And because it's a show that question, you need to show your angles in detail. So we have cosine of 7 theta plus theta/2. Cosine of 7 theta minus theta/2. And then the terms in between, we have 2 of cosine 5 theta plus 3 theta/2. Cosine of 5 theta minus 3 theta/2. Okay. Now, what do we have here? We have cosine 4 theta, cosine 3 theta, and we don't know what to do for this now. 2 of cosine 4 theta and cosine theta. Okay? And since on the right is a product of things, and you can see that there are common factors 2 and cosine 4 theta. So we pick out 2 cosine 4 theta, and we have another sum of 2 cosines. And to add this, we have 2, so altogether is 4, cosine 4 theta first, and we have cosine of 3 theta plus theta/2, cosine of 3 theta minus theta/2. By then, you will get cosine 2 theta, cosine theta. And so we have 4 cosine theta, cosine 2 theta, cosine 4 theta, which is the same as the right-hand side. Now for part B, you need to solve that equation, which is exactly the same as the left-hand side in part A. That means you need to rewrite them as the right-hand side because it's a factor form. And also, make sure you pay attention to the range of values of theta you need to solve. So for part B, we can use the previous results that for this one, is the same as 4 cosine theta cosine 2 theta cosine 4 theta equals 0. And for all theta, you need to know the range that you need to solve. So it's maybe convenient for you to write some range aside or in the rough worksheets. That is 0 to 2 theta is from 0 to pi. And for 4 theta is ranging from 0 to 2 pi. Okay? So to solve this, we know that is the same as cosine theta 0, or cosine 2 theta is 0, or cosine 4 theta is 0. And when do we get 0 for cosine? Is about pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, okay, the two basic angles. So for theta ranging from 0 to pi over 2, there's just only one solution. Theta is pi over 2. And for cosine 2 theta, we know that 2 theta is pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Now, make sure that you don't miss this pi over 2, because some of you may think that, oh, in the previous equation, I include pi over 2 already, and then I do not need to include the pi over 2 for this as the solution. Okay, make sure that you know you need to further divide it by 2 to get the real solution for theta. Okay, so don't miss anything, and you can treat these three equations as separate, three different equations, and then after you have solving, you just combine all the results. And sometimes you may really write some equations which is appeared in the previous equation, and that's okay. And don't include repeated angles in your final solution, and that's fine. Okay. And for this one, 3 pi over 2 is outside the range, because for 2 theta is ranging from 0 to pi. So 3 pi over 2 exists pi. So I erase it. Now for 4 theta, it runs through 0 to 2 pi. So really we will have pi over 2 or 3 pi over 2. Okay. So in the end, we will have theta equals pi over 2, pi over 4, pi over 8, or 3 pi over 8. So we have 4 solutions for theta. Okay? So that's all for this video, and there's one more video coming up related to the sum to product or product to sum formula. Okay? Thanks for watching.